Alright guys, today we are solving and graphing. So we have these graphs that you're going to graph on, and then we have these equations. But these equations are not in the correct form. So we're going to solve each equation for y, but if there's no y, then we're going to solve for x, okay? So we're going to do some of these together. So let's just talk for a second about y. We have to do this, why we're solving for y. Haha. Okay, so our slope-intercept formula is y equals mx plus b, where the m is our slope and our b is our y-intercept. So remember, from the slope, then we can figure out our rise and our run, and we can move. From the y-intercept, we figure out where we begin on our y-axis. Okay, so that's just a little information. Remember, we have 4 different kinds of slopes. We have this guy, this guy, this guy, that guy. We always walk on our graphs like we read in English from left to right. So if I walk uphill, that's a positive slope. If I walk downhill, that's a negative slope. Straight up and down is an undefined slope. This is usually, and then left and right, or a flat slope, has a slope of 0. Usually, anything we can walk on, so if we can walk on it, then it has a y equals. So these first two are y equals, and then I can walk on a flat ground, so that one's y equals. The weird one has an x equals. And then these slopey ones always have a y and some sort of x. We don't know what it is. But this guy only has a y. So that's just some reminders of information for you before we graph. Okay, so we're going to look at number 2. So number 2 is not in the correct form. We can't get our slope and our y-intercept from how it's written now. So we have to get the y all by itself. In order to get the y all by itself, we have to get rid of the number in front. So right now my 2 and my y are getting multiplied, so the opposite is divide. So we're going to divide all of our numbers by 2. Okay? Alright, now we have the 2's cancel, leaving the y by itself. -6 divided by 2, so you can just type that in our calculator. So we have our cute little calculator, and then it's -6 divided by 2 is -3. So we put that here. And then we have -2/5 divided by 2. Our calculators love fractions, so we're just going to type that in. So we're going to use the fraction-y button, and we have -2 over 5. And then, we're dividing by 2. Okay? Then we get -1/5. So -1/5, and it has an x next to it. Okay, now, a few things. If you don't have a cool calculator like this, then what you could do is you could type it like this way. -2 divided by 5 in parentheses. Okay, so parentheses, -2 divided by 5 divided by 2. Then you should get some sort of a decimal when you do that. Now, every calculator has this button on the bottom that says F to D. It means fraction to decimal. Mine's blue, so that means in order to get to my blue button, I have to press the second. So I'm going to press second, which makes all of the blue buttons available, and then I press this guy. Now, on my calculator, it should say answer, which is this number, F to D. So I'm changing this decimal into a fraction, okay? Then, after you have that highlighted, you press enter, and you should get a fraction. It doesn't matter what calculator you have, this is the other way to do it, okay? Now, normally we rewrite this differently. We rewrite it with y equals our mx plus b. So we can just rearrange it if we want to, but we don't have to. So our slope is the number in front of our x, so -1/5. And our y-intercept, our b value, is the extra number, -3. So now we graph. Okay, so we're going to go on our graph. We always begin on the y-axis. We're going to go down to 3 and put a dot. My slope is decreasing, so think about what your graph looks like before you graph it. It should look something like that. And it's decreasing by a rise of 1 and a run of 5. So we're going to rise 1, and then we're going to run 5, but I want it to look like this, so I'm going to go this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can only move from one dot to the next, so I go back to this dot and then go opposite. Down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I connect these dots using a nice straight line with arrows at the ends. And there we go. Okay, it's not that complicated, but I talked a lot about other things, so that's why it feels pretty complicated. So the idea is to get y by itself. So let's do 4. Okay, I have 2 letters in here, so we're trying to get y alone. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this extra number, this minus 7x. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to add 7x to each side. So now we have 4y equals. Okay, now here's the thing. My 16 does not have an x, but my 7 does. So they are not like terms, so they just hang out, like that. Okay, now the last step is to get my y by itself. Well, since my 4 is getting multiplied by my y, I do the opposite, so I divide everything by 4. Okay, so now I have y equals 16 divided by 4 is 4. And then 7 divided by 4 is a decimal, but for slopes we want fraction. And I know it's a slope because it's next to my x. So I'm going to keep it, 7/4 x. Fractions are fantastic. We don't have to change them. Now, if you wanted to, you could rewrite this so it's the x first and then the b, but you don't have to. Our slope is always the number in front of our x value. Oh, I need that positive sign. So it's positive 7/4. And our y-intercept is always the extra number, which is positive 4. Okay, then on our graph, we always begin with our b value on the y-axis, so we're going to go up to positive 4. My slope is positive, so think about what it's going to look like before you graph it. So it should look like this. This is a positive slope. I cannot go up 7. Remember, it's rise over run. So I'm going to go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now if I go right, 1, 2, 3, 4, when I connect my line, my dots like this, well, then I make a decreasing slope. So I don't want to go right. Instead, I want to go down 7 and left 1, 2, 3, 4. So that when I connect my 2 dots, I have a positive slope because my slope is positive. Okay, let's try another one. Number 6. This guy has no y. If it has no y, we have to solve for the x. The x is almost by itself, but not quite. So remember, when you just have a minus sign in front, it's really -1 times x equals 1, because any number in front of a variable is getting multiplied. So to get this x by itself, we're going to do the opposite. So we divide each side by -1, and x is equal to -1. Well, this guy is the weird one. He's the line that looks like this, straight up and down, undefined slope. So I'm just going to go on my x-axis to where I have -1, so on my x-axis to -1, and then my line goes straight up and down, like that. Okay, let's do number 8. So number 8 and number 4 are pretty similar, so we have to do the same idea. We have to get the y by itself by adding and subtracting, and then dividing. Well, this y is almost by itself. We don't have to add and subtract, so now we're just going to divide. So we divide everything by 4. Everything, don't forget. So now my 4's cancel here, leaving my y. -9 divided by 4 is some weird decimal, so we're going to keep our slope as fractions, and again, we know it's our slope because the x is next to my 9. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now we can graph. On the y-axis, we're going to go up to 5. My slope is negative, so it's decreasing, so think about what your slope looks like before you graph it. It should look like this. I can't go up 9 because remember slope is rise over run, so I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. To make a decreasing graph, I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can't put any more dots on my graph. I connect my dots using a nice long line with arrows at the end. Okay, let's keep going. We're going to do more even ones. Okay, number 10. So I need to get my y by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 to each side, and I'm also going to add 1/2 x. Okay, so that cancels my 1 on the left and my 1/2 x on the left, leaving me just my y. Since I cannot add 1 and 1/2 x, then I just write them out. 1 and 1/2 x. They're not like terms because they both don't have x's. My y is by itself now. Oh, I'm done. Okay, so my slope is whatever number is in front of your x, which is 1/2. And my y-intercept, where we begin, is the extra number, which is a positive 1. If it was a negative 1, there'd be like a negative sign in front. So even if it is like out of order, you can still tell. So I always begin on the y-axis, and I begin wherever my b value is, so at 1. My slope is positive, so think about what it looks like before you graph it, like that guy. So I have a rise of 1 and a run of 2. Rise of 1, run of 2. And we're just going to keep going all the way across. Now, once you can't go up anymore, go back to your beginning, because we always start over at the beginning, and go opposite. Down 1 to the left 2. Down 1 to the left 2. Down 1 to the left 2. If I would have gone to the right, it would have made like a V, kind of, and we don't want that. We want a nice straight line with arrows at the ends. Okay, number 12. This guy. We're trying to get the y by itself. It's pretty much there. We really like to write y on the left, so I'm just going to rearrange it for a second. I'm going to flip it around. 3y equals 6 minus x. Makes me feel a little better. Okay, now we have to get the y by itself. Since it's getting multiplied by the 3, we do the opposite. We're going to divide each side by 3. Those 3's cancel, leaving y. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now here, remember, if you just have a number with a minus, then there's a 1 in front. 1 divided by 3 is not a pretty whole number, so we're going to keep our cute little fraction. Because really, negative x divided by 3 is the same thing as negative 1/3 x. Now my y is by itself, so we can write our slope and our y-intercept. Our slope is always the number in front of our x value, so that's negative 1/3. It doesn't matter if it's out of order. The b value is always the extra number, which is positive 2. We always begin with our slope-intercept, our b, and we start on our, or begin on our y-axis. We begin at this number, which is positive 2. My slope is decreasing, so I want to think about my graph before I graph it. It has a rise of 1 and a run of 3. So I'm going to rise 1 and then run 1, 2, 3. When I connect those, that'll make a decreasing graph, so I did it correctly. After you get done going one direction, go back to your beginning, not the origin, beginning, and go opposite. Down 1/3, down 1/3. After you're all done, connect your dots using a nice long line with arrows at the ends. Okay, let's do 14. 14, we need to get the y by itself, so I need to move these 2 extra pieces away. They're getting added and subtracted, so that's what we'll do. We'll start by adding 10x to each side. So that is negative 3y equals, oh, dang it, silly 15. Negative 3y minus 15 equals 10x. But now I have the 15 next to my 3y, so I have to add 15 to each side, and you could have done this in one step. Negative 3y equals, my 10x and my 15 are not like terms, so they hang out next to each other. 10x plus 15. Now I have to get my variable by itself, my y, so I'm going to do the opposite. Since it's getting multiplied, I divide each side by negative 3. Got to take that negative with you. Now we have y equals, well, 10 divided by negative 3, that's not pretty, so we're just going to leave that guy alone. He's 10 over negative 3x. 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. Now we can write our information. Our slope is 10 over negative 3. And our y-intercept is negative 5. Now this negative 3 on the bottom, it doesn't really matter. It's still telling us that we have a negative slope. But we have to begin with our y-intercept at negative 5. So we go to the y-axis at negative 5. My slope is negative, so I have to think about what my graph looks like before I graph it. So this is what a negative slope looks like. And then I'm going to rise, I can't go down, rise 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then to the left, 1, 2, 3. That way I have a decreasing slope when I connect my dots using a nice long line with arrows at the ends. Okay. One more, 16. Okay, so let's write down some steps. Okay, the first step is add or subtract. The second step is divide. The third step is to write your m and your b. And the fourth step is to graph. Whoops, there you are. Heavens. Okay, so we are going to add or subtract. We need to get this y by itself, so I need to move my 12 to the other side. The opposite of minus 12 is plus 12 to each side. My 6x and my 12 are not like terms, so I have 6x plus 12 equals negative 3y. Now you can move it to the other side, or you can keep solving. It's up to you. I know that my negative 3 is getting multiplied by my y, so the opposite is divide. The second step. You have to divide everything. Divide all. Okay? 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. And negative 3 divided by 3 is 1, which leaves just our y. Now we're going to do our third step. We're going to write our m and our b. Our slope is always the number in front of our x, which is negative 2. Our b is the number that's at the end. Okay, the extra number. It's negative 4. Remember, if we don't have our slope written as a fraction, you always put a 1 under it. Okay, now we graph. We always begin on our y-axis at negative 4. My slope is negative, so think about what your graph looks like before you graph it. Okay, I'm going to rise 2 and run 1 this way so that I have a decreasing slope. And it looks just so lovely. The last step is to connect your dots using a nice straight line with arrows at the ends. Alright guys, practice and let your teacher know if you have any questions. Have a great day. Bye!